witness in Dhaka. Say, how's it going? Welcome.
TJ, I'm good, brother. How are you doing?
I thought you were being shy on me there because I didn't see you.
I'm here.
Oh,
I'm
there
here.
you go.
Definitely here.
Awesome. And we invited you because I want to speak specifically to your book, man. It's not about money. It's more than just money, you said. I've got my own copy here that I've been grinding on, you know.
I've got my own copy too.
Good stuff. And the other day I was trying to figure out how did I get to have 3 copies of this book. And I realized that my wife had actually hooked up another one, and then I got one from you the other day when I came to visit you. And I've been digging in your stuff, man, in terms of how you just think and why you were thinking like that. And I know your background in terms of where you started off from, single mom in Tembisa. For some of you who don't know where Tembisa is, it's a township in Johannesburg. And because of our history in South Africa, the segregations of land, it made witness to be there. That's where he was, right? But he was quite fortunate. I always say to him that he's lucky because his mother saw what he could be before witness could see it. So she made him the landlord at a young age, right? And you just took it on and you continued running with it. But obviously in the beginning, it might have freaked you out because number one, you're young. Number two, not so many people were being landlords at your age at the time because there was just no one, and it's unheard of. You know, we're in the townships, and but you have also grown much bigger than that, and you haven't forgotten or you haven't left what your mom kind of like put on your path, and you have continued now adding more onto it. You got a business now. Over and above that, you now write books. Over and above that, you've now become an influential person in helping those that are wanting to be helped. Yesterday I was here. We were talking about why did the wise men, the 3 wise men, why did they go and see a newborn baby who was called a teacher? Why did they go and see him when they were wise and wealthy? Because they brought with them good presents, wealth, very rich presents, right? But why would 3 people that are at the time, we can easily say these were the Jeff Bezos of today.
Yeah.
They decided to go and see a baby that was born. They followed the star, right? And the reason is that they were just looking for more wisdom. They were looking for more education. They were looking to learn. But this guy was like just born. So what could have been the lesson there? It's not about the person. It's about the title. It's like saying, you know, when you meet up a police officer, you know, on the highway, and you know that they are Jabu from Soweto, you don't get out of the car and like, Jabu, how's it? When he stopped you on the street.
Yeah.
When he stopped you on the street, you're going to respect the office that he's wearing at that day, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you're gonna sit on the car up until he disarms you of saying, how's it, witness my trauma? And then you can start having the trauma conversation. But you will have to wait. If you don't wait, it is one of those things where the office, even though you know him to be Jabu from the corner in Soweto or wherever, that might not work. He is going to still arrest you because he's wearing a different office.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna give it to you, brother, so that you can just share your teachings. You can just share. I do think that a lot of the people that are here do know you, but if you don't know Witness, I've just introduced him. In case you haven't realized, I've already introduced him, that he's an author. There's the book here that he's written. And if you don't have it, you need to have it. Read about it. I've been reading on it. I'm not done. I'm reading on it. I read books in a very different way. I read books chapter by chapter, and I go and implement stuff, and I come back to it. And I read again, I go and implement stuff. I don't go to the next stuff if I haven't implemented anything. But if I don't learn anything from that chapter, fine, I move on. But if I want to implement something, I stop, right? That's me. That's how I do my books. You don't have to do it that way. So he is Witness, and I like the way he thinks. I think that he brings us value into our community. He is someone that I look up to in terms of his grind and the craft that he is doing. And I honestly think that in the time that we are in, getting young people that are rising up to think differently than the norm, because that's what he does, and giving us this value, you've got to lean on.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, TJ, for that introduction already. Obviously, like you said, my name is Witness Mtaka. I'm a property investor first. I'm a property manager second, and also I'm the author of this book. It's more than just money: a guide to escaping the rat race and building generational wealth. Now, my story is quite simple. You know, in the year 2008, my mother discovered that she had overpaid her house that she bought in 1990 by over 150,000 rands. And then upon realizing that, she took that money and built back rooms at home in Tembisa back in the day, where when back rooms or bachelor apartments in one's yard were not popular. You know, she built those back rooms and then said to me that if I want to go to university, I must look after the rooms. I remember the first tenant that we had at home was Julius Kotokwane. He took out the money, wanted to give it to my mother. I must have been 17, 18 at the time. And then my mother said to him, Julius, every month you must give the money to my boy, Weety. That's what she affectionately called me then. And then after that, literally, I went on to graduate with a bachelor's degree in business administration. I worked in a marketing company for a year before I quit and started my business. And then I also have a postgraduate diploma in project management. I think that speaks to the work that I do in the property industry. Then I went on to build a business which is now Quality Growth International, that invests, develops, and manages property. You know, so that's the short and long of it. TJ, I don't know if you want to say something before I continue with what I have to say this morning.
Continue, buddy. Continue.
All right. So I think the biggest thing while I was listening to you, TJ, talking about Africa and the fact that young people have to stand up, you know, and take matters upon themselves to make Africa a great continent. I think the biggest thing for me, more than money, like as you're explaining that some of the richest people in the world do not necessarily focus on money anymore. You know, they focus on different things, be it the goals and the dreams that they have. Like Elon Musk, you mentioned him. He wants to move people to Mars. His thinking is that should Earth be totally destroyed, human beings need to be able to escape to another planet. You know, so I think that's a cause that he's dedicated to and he's focused on. And me, on the other hand, I think part of the reason why I even wrote this book specifically was not necessarily setting out to make money from it, although I've made money from the sales of the book. But initially, when I wrote the book, I realized that there was a gap in our Black society specifically, you know, a gap when it comes to sharing perspective. Like you said earlier on, I had been blessed to have a mother that was able to recognize my potential and was able to even invest in that potential and even help me in terms of guiding me to become the person that I am today. But not many people have that. And in the year 2020, as I was sharing my perspective, in terms of wealth creation, property development specifically, and then financial freedom. As I was sharing my perspective on that, it happened that a lot of people were commenting on what I had to say at the time. Some were quite accurate in what they were saying. Some I could see that they were being antagonistic, but antagonistic because they didn't have knowledge in terms of what was being shared with them. And I realized that, oh, actually, these people don't have the right kind of perspective. They don't have the right kind of perspective when it comes to investing, the right kind of mindset, what it takes, what you need, how you need to have mentors and build relationships with those mentors. So I think the biggest thing for me between uh, the reason why the book is even named It's More Than Just Money is because a lot of our people, a lot of us, when we start out in business or investing or even property, is that we focus more on the money than we do on the other things that actually do attract the money, like bringing value onto the market and attracting the right kind of money because of the value that you're putting into the market. So, and then I thought, maybe let me just write a book that is going to speak to that is going to give people a different kind of perspective, a different kind of mindset. And of course, that was a risk on my end because I think different from most people. It's not necessarily better, it's just different. And when you are different, you'll obviously be attacked for your views. But fortunately for me, I had the courage to share and share unapologetically about what I thought needs to happen. And I put all of that in this book. But what I'm going to share today is not going to be long, it's going to be brief, and then I'll take some questions. But basically, want to give people perspective because I think most people that are here now are more focused on wanting financial freedom, wanting financial riches, being free, being able to go where you want, stay as long as you want, and do whatever you want. We all want that. We don't want to feel like we are trapped, be it in a job or in a certain business that requires us to be there every single day. Now, as you may or may not know, the cornerstone of wealth creation for centuries, all the people that you mentioned earlier on, TJ, all of them are in business. They run businesses for themselves. So business is the first cornerstone of wealth creation. If you want to be successful, if you want to be somebody who is extremely financially successful, you have to have a business of your own. And then secondly, it's property. The second cornerstone of wealth creation is property. So if you want to be wealthy, be it in the medium to long term, or even in the short term, if you've got the skill to select and buy properties that are cash flow producing from day one. If you've got the skill, you've got the skill to put together a team. Property is the second cornerstone of wealth creation. And the third cornerstone of wealth creation will always be shares or share investing or equity investing, buying and holding or trading shares. Now, obviously, as time went on, there have been other things that have been introduced, like Bitcoin, that are starting to help people build wealth. But however, those have not been tested for centuries. Now, I'm talking about what has been tested for decades, for centuries, and years, even sometimes even before Christ. Business has always been there. Property investing has always existed. If you look at some of the wars that were fought in the Bible, were fought because of land and property. And then the third thing, share investing, or obviously at that time, it might not have been as sophisticated as it is now. But think of it this way, there have been people that would have trades as as people who are working with iron, or we're working with platinum, or as what do you call these people? People who were making weapons, for instance, things like swords back in the day, even before Christ. All those people needed funding from someone. There has to be somebody that gives them gold, or that gives them money for them to be able to buy whatever that they need. And really, shares is exactly that. Shares is exactly that thing where you buy. Yes, I see TJ is saying farming. Farming has been existing since then. That's property. It's a cornerstone of wealth creation, right? But shares, going back to shares, it's something where somebody needed to buy equipment in order to produce certain things back in the day. There had to be someone that invested in that person's business. And that's literally shares, and sometimes that person would even borrow without necessarily giving the other person shares, but give that person a monthly payment for the money that they've invested in their business. If you read The Richest Man in Babylon, the book The Richest Man in Babylon, it covers all of that in great detail. The fact that you can lend out money to somebody who runs a business, and the person pays you rental for your money. Well, what they mean by rental in that, they literally mean interest. So the person receives the money, they do the business, they get an income from their business, they make a profit, they pay you a certain amount of money over a period of time, or indefinitely maybe. So that means if they're paying you indefinitely, you absolutely have a share in their profit. So that's exactly what it is. That has been existing for centuries. So all of these, business, property, shares, are all interconnected, and they work together in helping you build wealth for yourself. Now with shares, it's either you issue them, or it's either you invest in them. It's always been the case. As a private business owner, you issue shares in your business. As a public entity, you issue shares to the public. And that is how it's always been. So I just thought I need to cover that in terms of giving background for us to understand that there is a cornerstone to wealth creation. And the sooner we understand that, then the better. So that even if you're an employee, wherever you are right now, you're able to think in terms of which business can I have an interest in? If I don't run the business myself, how can I take some money and invest in that business so that I can get cash flow from that business? Be it monthly amounts that you are being paid, or yearly dividends. How can you get paid? How can you make your money work for you? And then you also think of property. How can I, as an employee right now, start investing in property directly? TJ and his team obviously have got some projects that they require people to invest in, right? We in our team as well, we have projects that we allow or give people an opportunity to invest in so that they could get a return on their money, right? So you sitting there, the question will always be, what business do you have an interest in? Is it property? Is it farming? What is it? Can you start investing some money into that business, either for you to operate it and run it, or for it to be run by somebody else who's going to give you your return or a monthly cash flow or ROI, right? And then we look at shares, right? Can you buy some shares in a listed company, or buy some shares in a company that's already existing? And then also we look at one of the easiest of all these three to start making money from is property. How can you start positioning yourself to be able to buy properties, apart from investing in my projects, TJ's projects, somebody else's projects? That's okay. That gives you cash flow immediately. But how can you also buy properties directly from your family trust, or even in your personal capacity? Depends on how you want to structure things, or in another company that you've set up. How can you start buying properties so that they can give you cash flow for the rest of your life, or until you sell the property? So in analyzing business, property, and shares, we also analyze it in a sense of having a sense of freedom. I'm going to write that down myself. A sense of freedom. When you are investing in a business or are doing anything that is related to working, you want to work with a sense of freedom. What is that day where you are going to feel like you are completely free? What is it? What is it going to be? Is it going to be the day where you could buy your dream house cash or build it cash, your dream car cash? What is it? We all have different goals and different dreams. Your dreams are never going to be the same as mine. Mine are never going to be the same as yours. You've got your own dreams. But when you are working, when I'm working, I have to work with a sense of freedom. And I always say to TJ that I want to be available for my daughter anytime. I need to be able to avail myself whenever she goes swimming, horse riding, anytime. I need to be able to be there. I need to be able to make time. So meaning I don't have to report to anyone for me to be able to do that. For me, that forms part of my freedom. The fact that at any moment in time, if my phone was to ring right now, and it is said that my daughter needs me and it's an emergency, I will excuse myself from this meeting and drive away because I've got that freedom. I won't even ask anyone for permission. I'll obviously say sorry, but I'll get into my car, drive to where my daughter is, right? We all have that sense of knowing what it is that is going to make us feel free. And I'm going to go through all of that. But before we get to that, right, we've got active income and passive income. You guys are property investors. Some of you are investors yourselves. You know exactly what that means. Active income is income that you get if you work for it. So you only get paid for working. If you don't work, you're not going to get that income, right? Some businesses that people own, they have to constantly be there for them to be able to make money. If the person doesn't go, they don't make any money. If you're a doctor or a lawyer, you have to be there doing the work. Otherwise, you do not get paid unless you've systematized your business to a point where you've hired other people that work in it and you run the business remotely or from the outside and it's growing. So you own a business rather than work in a business. And then that then helps you produce what we call passive income. You get to a point where maybe you don't have to be in the business so many hours in a day or so many days in a week or so many weeks in a month or so many months in a year. You don't necessarily have to be there all the time for you to make the money. The money is made whether you're there or not. Now that's what we call passive income, and property is able to produce that for you as well. So if you run a business, you want to put in systems for that business to eventually run independently of you. The men that were mentioned by TJ, Jeff Bezos, I can mention Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, all those businesses have got systems. If they are there because they want to be there. But the business can run without them. So that's passive income. And then you've got what we call property. Obviously, if you've built the right kind of property portfolio, there are certain properties you don't have to go there if you've built a team that manages and runs that for you. So it gives you passive income, right? You get an income every month, whether there's work that you did or not. Then shares also produces passive income for you if you've got dividends that are being paid on a monthly basis from a listed company, or you've got dividends that get paid to you because you invested in a property development project. All of that produces passive income for you. So there are two incomes that we've mentioned there. We've mentioned active income, we've mentioned passive income. Now, the last session of my discussion now is going to speak directly to the levels of wealth and what our perspective needs to be around that. Like I said when I started, the biggest thing is perspective. It's not necessarily the amount of money that you're making, but it's your perspective. That's why I'm asking, what would be the number that would say you are financially free right now? What would be the number that would say, witness, you are financially free, you are financially rich, you can do whatever you want, anytime you want, with whoever you want, you don't necessarily have to work. But obviously, there's a certain thinking and perspective that has to be applied to that. You know, when you look at the levels of wealth, you know, we've got the rat race, financial independence, financial freedom, and financial riches. And all of that are different from one person to another. Obviously, the rat race is where you find yourself working to get active income. So if you don't work, you don't get paid. So that is where we all start. We all start in the rat race. If you are employed in a company or in a job or a project or a business, you know for a fact that if I don't wake up this morning and go and work, I'm not going to get paid. I'm not going to make any money. That's what we call being in the rat race. You know, that's why this book is named It's More Than Just Money, a guide to escaping the rat race and building generational wealth. So now you are in the rat race. We all started in the rat race. You have active income. It's your salary or it's money that you make because you are working. If you don't work, you don't get that money. And then secondly, we have what we call financial independence. Financial independence is when your activities from business, property, shares, your passive income activities, your passive income money that you get from doing business, investing in property, and buying shares is now producing the same amount of money as your living expenses, right? Your everyday expenses, your costs, your monthly costs. So say for instance, you make 5,000 rands from your passive income, be it from shares, a business or property, and that money is made without you working. It's passive, right? And your expenses on a monthly basis is also 5,000 rands. Then that means you are financially independent. You don't have to do anything. Your expenses are equal your passive income. So you can sit and do nothing, right? Your expenses will be paid. You're going to make money passively from your business, your property, or your share portfolio. However, if there is an emergency, right? Maybe you need $1,000 more, then you have to go and work to cover that emergency, right? So you're just independent in the sense that you don't have to work for you to get the money to pay for your expenses. Now, we all have different expenses, right? I mentioned 5,000 rands right now. For someone else, his expenses are 50,000 rands. So if your expenses are 50,000 rands and your passive income is also 50,000 rands, passively made from your business activities, property or shares, then you're also financially independent. The same as the guy who's making 5,000 passive income and his expenses are 5,000 rands. Now there comes another guy that makes 500,000 rands passive income, but you find that his expenses on a monthly basis are also 500,000 rands. That guy is not more wealthier than the other two. He's also just as financially independent as they are. The only difference is that he lives larger than they do. Now, there are two ways to make a man wealthy, right? Two ways. It's either you curb his desire for more in terms of spending, and he reduces his expenses. Maybe the guy who's making 5,000 passive income reduces his expenses to 2,500, and the guy at 50,000 reduces his expenses to 25,000. The guy at 500,000 reduces his expenses to 250,000 rands. What that does, it moves both of them, all of them, to the next level of financial wealth level. So that would be financial freedom, when your passive income makes you twice the amount of expenses you have. Now, that's the one way the person can move on to the next level, right? By curbing his desires and reducing his expenses. That way, his passive income is twice the amount of what his financial commitments on a monthly basis are. So his expenses and his costs on a monthly basis, right? However, there's another way you can make a man wealthy, and that is to increase his income, right? Specifically, his passive income, not his active income, his passive income. You are rich or wealthy according to the level of passive income you make, not according to the level of active salaried income that you make. You know, you need to be able to make so much passive income that no one can absolutely fire you, right? No one can wake up in the morning and say you're fired and you're back at square one. So you're rich according to the amount of passive income you have. Now, I said the first way to make a man wealthy is to curb his desires. The second way is to increase his income tremendously. So in this instance, this guy who's making 5,000 a month can decide, I'm not going to reduce my expenses. I'm going to double my income. I'm going to make 10,000 rands passive income on a monthly basis instead of reducing my expenses to 5,000. Or instead of living in financial independence only, making 5,000, spending 5,000. I'm going to make 10,000 and spend only 5,000. And the guy at 50 decides, I'm going to make 50,000, I'm going to make 100,000 and spend 50. And the other guy as well, remember, they're all on the same financial level. The other guy as well decides, I'm going to make 1 million rands a month and I'm going to spend 500,000 rands a month on my expenses and my costs. Therefore, I will have financial freedom. I will have financial freedom. So financial freedom is determined by your appetite also in life, because this guy that is making 1 million a month can reduce his expenses still to 100,000 and he would be 10 times as wealthy as he is right now. However, let's focus on the examples that we are giving according to what we are learning about these three guys. So all of them are at the same level of financial freedom. Their passive income is twice the amount of their expenses. And then lastly, you have what we call financial riches or financial wealth. These are the people that are making 3 times and more from their passive income, 3 times their expenses. So the guy who's making 5,000, whose expenses are 5,000 a month, decides, I want to be financially rich. I'm going to keep my expenses at 5,000 and I'm going to increase my income, passive income, to 15,000 rands a month. I'm going to have 15,000 rands a month passive income. And then the other guy who's making 50,000 a month decides, actually, I also can make 150,000 rands a month while keeping my costs at 50,000. And the other guy at 500,000 rands costs a month decides, I'm going to make 1.5 million a month and I'm going to keep my expenses at 50,000 rands a month. That way, all these men are financially rich. So all of it all boils down to perspective. Now, the guy that's making 15,000 at 5,000 rand cost might look at the guy who's making 1.5 million at 500,000 per cost and say, hey, he's more wealthier than me. But when you put it into perspective, these men are living according to what their desires are. And according to that, they're both wealthy. Now, obviously, there's nothing wrong with this guy dreaming then to increase his income to 1.5 million and also have his expenses at 500,000 rands. And I mean, I can imagine how much the expenses of someone who's making 15 million a month are. Maybe they're 5 million because he's living large, he's enjoying his life, he's driving the car of his dreams. But all of that is in accordance with the income that he is making. And because of that, he is financially wealthy. So I shared with you 4 things: the rat race, which is no passive income at all. You only get active income. Even if you're earning 1.5 million a month a year, you can be fired anytime. That's active income. Financial independence is when your passive income made from business, property, or shares is equal to your expenses. And then thirdly, your financial freedom is when your passive income is 3 times the amount of money that your expenses, it's 2 times the amount of money that your expenses are. And then lastly, what we call financial riches is when your passive income is 3 times the amount of expenses that you have. And of course, it can be more. And of course, you can grow from there and build ultimate wealth for yourself. And I think that's what I wanted to share with you today. I think that we can name this perspective versus money. The focus is not necessarily on the amount of money, it's the perspective. Where are you right now? what sort of level can you create for yourself right now? Because the guy who's making 5 grand, 15,000 at 5 grand expenses is wealthy, but his problem is that he might want to live the same lifestyle as the guy who's making 150,000 at 50,000 rands cost, desiring to live that lifestyle without understanding that, hang on, if you just continue where you are and increase your costs as you triple your passive income, then you'll always be rich and you'll always be wealthy, and you can leave something for your children that is going to be generational. Mr. TJ, that was my presentation for today, and I don't think I needed more time than that.
So I want to ask of you a few questions. And by the way, if you do have your own questions, whether you're watching on YouTube or here in the room, jot down your questions there. I will come to them. But I'm going to go first with my questions that I want to ask Witness. Witness, I am in a position of getting married, just about to get married. This is a scenario. I am married already, happily married. Yeah. I remember when my wife and I decided to get married, and I'm saying this because of what I see in our communities, right? When my wife and I decided we were going to get married, shortly before that, we decided to buy a house that we were going to call home, right? So that was our first commitment to ourselves before we got married. And I want to take the credit to say I was already looking for a house, and my wife kind of like jumped along, and she picked the house. So we're always having that argument, like whose idea was it? But here's the thing, that was the first asset that we thought we were buying, and it wasn't an asset; it's a liability. We didn't know what we didn't know at the time. And it took money. It's continuously taking money out of our pockets up until now. Love my house. It's given us great comfort over the years with our 2 kids. Now, over and above that, when we decided to get married, and I know that I'm going to get a bit of slack from a couple of people here. Yes, my wife is mixed, so there was no lobola there. But I want to speak to the point of getting married. I have seen young people spending a fortune that they don't even have on getting married. So my wife and I, we decided we were going to do a breakfast wedding, and literally, how much is a breakfast meal, dude? You can't go wrong on breakfast for more than 100 rand, even today, right? So we did a breakfast wedding, and 10 o'clock we started, 12 o'clock we were out, done. Literally, we had breakfast for the wedding, and that was it. That was the meal. It was our idea of getting married and saving our money. Witness, give us some advice, man. If you were to get married today with what you know today, what route would you go for you to get married with your boo that you know that for the next 10 years, you're going to be together, and for the next 50 years, you're going to be together, especially around the spend on getting married. Whether you're black, white, it doesn't really matter, but I'm talking about that aspect where the two of you have a decision making, not the parents, in case you have to pay lobola. If you have to pay lobola, you have to pay it, right? Maybe you can negotiate, but I don't know. I know in some cultures, the guy actually gets paid some money, right? The dowry part of it. So you have no control of that. But the stuff that you have control of, what's your perspective, man, on that?
So TJ, luckily for you, I've been married and I've been divorced, and I'll probably get married again. High probability that I will get married again, right? So for me, looking at it from the perspective of someone who's been married and someone who's been divorced and someone who believes in marriage, the thing that I'll say is that
and you're starting off in life. I think the perspective is you're starting off in life.
Yes. The decisions that you are making then will help both of you whether your marriage lasts 100 years or it lasts 6 years like mine. And the reason I say that is because when you are starting, you must understand that you are coming from nothing. Well, unless you come from a wealthy family, right? And
Right.
understand that everything that you have at that moment is literally what we call capital. And it will be your decision to say, are we investing this capital in our marriage to move ourselves to another level of wealth? Or are we going to use it to enjoy life? Those are two different perspectives. Because you can use the money to have a big wedding and move on to one of my rental properties after getting married. Or you can take that money and decide that we're not even going to buy a home. We'll still move into a rental property and we'll invest in one of our own rental properties for somebody else to pay us rent as we pay rent. Now, that's a different perspective because a lot of people, when they start out, they want to obviously have a nice car, a nice home, and a nice wedding, and it's mainly because we always feel the pressure to want to show that because we are married, we are doing well. And what I would say is that in the first 5 years of your marriage, TJ, if you're starting out, the first 5 years literally is you building your roots. And your roots are the money that you are investing in the projects that you have, the little that you have. What you want to do is invest it in such a way that should the unfortunate day of divorce come, for instance, then you and your partner at least have got something to share. You go your way, you've done well. She goes her way, she's done well herself. Or if it lasts 100 years, because some marriages do last 100 years, then at least you guys can enjoy the right quality of life because you've built and invested from day one. So in nutshell, what I'm saying is that you don't want to take everything that you have and put it in a wedding one day. Or you don't want to take everything you have and put it in a beautiful home. Now, I'll give you an example of what a mentor of mine once said. So she stays right here in Waterfall. She drives, or she lives in a 20 million rand house. Well, she's obviously quite wealthy. I don't know what level of wealth, according to what we've discussed, she's in, but she's living a nice life. She's got very nice house, 20 million rands, marble floors, beautiful house in Waterfall. But there's something that she once said to me. She said to me, Witness, what I respect about you is that your portfolio produces an income for you. It gives you money. I live in this 20 million rand superstructure, but I'm not making any money from it. In fact, it's costing me money every single month in terms of maintaining it, municipal costs, and day-to-day living in this house. Right? When I go to the bank, it can be used as collateral, yes, because I built cash, but it doesn't have any cash flow. If I was to take this amount of money and give it to you, I know that you would get a lot more value from this than I would, right? So also when starting out, there's nothing wrong with renting. Renting with the purpose of building your own portfolio. Remember, the biggest thing is perspective. Business, property, shares, passive income versus active income. If I can rent, then I'm using all the money that I could be spending on a home to invest in a property development deal, to invest in a property, to buy a property portfolio for myself so that I can have passive income quickly, right? If I've got a salary now and I decide to allocate it to a home because I just got married, number one, I don't come from a wealthy family. Number two, I'm in the rat race, I'm working. But now I'm digging my grave even more by just buying a house, and more especially if I buy a house that is expensive in relation to my income. So now that house becomes the thing that I'm working for on a daily basis. A lot of our employed people, all they're working for is nice houses and nice cars. That's all they have to show for their 20 years of work, right? But if you decide that I'm not gonna pay transfer fees and pay a bond for the next 20 years, I will do what I will do is take this money, buy an investment property, a building. If you're buying a 2 million rand house, you can find a 2 million rand building that you can refurbish, rent out, and it gives you cash flow. It pays the rental where you stay, it pays for itself and gives you cash flow. So if I was starting, in fact, if I was starting, I would read this book. Personally, if I was to start over, everything taken from me, I would sit down and read my own book. I would sit down, read it, implement it, because some of the things I'm sharing are right in there. And then from there, I would make sure that I focus my attention on building my asset base, not necessarily buying a house. That's a liability, like you said.
Yeah, thanks, man. I got disconnected. Yeah, we just dropped off of power, and we're back on with our backup mobiles. So let's see whether it's gonna hold here until to the end. Thanks on that feedback, Witness. The other question that I want to ask of you is, you are now newly married, and you are starting off. You know, you got married, you got into a space, whatever space that you got into, and you're now husband and wife. In your book, you speak about getting married within the right contracts, and you are not aware of any of these things. The question that I want to ask of you is, now you are starting at that position now, where you were not aware of all of these things. And you as a person, the man, maybe, let's assume you're the wife. The wife is driven. She wants to make things better for the family. She's now getting through. She's come to your page. She's come to my page. She's come to my classes. She's gone through to see yours. And now she's like, we can start building, but the other partner is not seeing it because they are not privy to this information, like what I was around about 6-7 years ago. How do you navigate that?
Okay, so TJ, you're saying these people are married. How are they married? Are they married in community of property?
Yeah, let's take that, because that's where everyone is. They just get married.
Where, yeah, because it's automatic, right? When you get married, you automatically get married in community of property.
I like it's automatic. Yes.
Okay, the first thing is that obviously, if you are here, don't get married in community of property. That's the first thing. Not because you're gonna get divorced, but because you want to protect your family, right? You want to get married in the right kind of contract. There are 3 types, of course: in community, out of community of property with accrual, and out of community of property without accrual. Now, accrual there means whatever you accrue or work for in your marriage belongs to both of you. And without means what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours. But obviously, you and I want to ascribe to with accrual, you know. So firstly, you don't get married in community of property because you want to protect the family. If there's a lawsuit, you don't want both of you and your names to be dragged into it. You know, one partner is being liquidated in their business, that affects the other partner if you are married in community of property. You know, it's got nothing to do with divorce, but more in terms of asset protection and family protection, right? So I think our thinking around when we are starting is that, how do we grow what we have, number one? Number two, how do we protect what we have, right? So it's one thing to just grow, but not protect it. But it's another to grow while protecting it at the same time. So I think if the wife can find a way to explain to the husband in a manner that he will understand, that would be number one. And also attending sessions like this with the partner, you know, not going alone. You know, you are empowered with knowledge, but the person that you're with doesn't really understand what you're saying. So it's important to be in the same room with the person that you're married to, so that you both get the same information and you both learn from the same teachers, unless the person doesn't want to come. But everything that we buy into is because of sales. The person who's selling it to us is able to explain it better. So maybe if my partner doesn't understand, I need to learn to explain it in the way that he will understand, because it's that important. We are talking about the wealth of our family, the protection of the wealth, and then also handing it over to the next generation. So obviously we could look into setting up family trusts if we are married in community of property. Some people are extreme. They divorce and get married again in the right kind of contract. I don't advocate for that. Some of them go wrong, but some people do it. Those who love each other and they still think we can still protect our family, let's get divorced, divide our assets on paper, and then get back together with accrual. You know, people do that. I've never done it. I don't know how it works. I don't want to do it. I don't advocate for it, but it works for some people. You know, I have a friend who's done it, but it was unfortunately betrayed by the person that he was married to. Once the assets were shared, she went, the house is mine, my chief. You can't come here anymore, and you and I are divorced, right? But obviously, there's to be a certain level of trust between the people, and communication is the key thing. You know, in business, we communicate with our partners, with our employees, with our investors, with our tenants, with our customers. We communicate. I think that is going to be the major factor then.
Yeah. No, dude, you know, the reason why I ask you these questions is because I know you're a family man. You got a young family just like me, and you're grinding. So you're thinking, I know that it is in that space. And that's why I ask of you these questions. And so that we can also help our community right now in terms of how can they navigate these things. I am anti, let's give you the information and you all get bubbly and now you're like, but how do I do it? What is the practical way? And you get lost in that, you know, like I always tell people, I had never been exposed to a pizza before. The first time I heard the name pizza was in a classroom and the teacher was talking about, you can divide it in a pizza way. And because I'd never seen a pizza, my first question was, what is a pizza? And I needed to get my education of the pizza and then to be able to work my homework, you know? So I always want us to give people practical stuff that they can go home and do and progress within their families and for themselves. The last question I'm going to ask of you is, before I let you go, is what does success mean for you?
It means freedom. I think first and foremost, it means freedom because, like I say, I don't want to work without a sense of freedom. You know, I don't think I would necessarily call myself successful if I wasn't free. You know, free to truly express myself. Number one, my kind of thoughts sometimes don't align with what society thinks. So if I wasn't free, I wouldn't be able to express myself the way I want to. So if you are an outcast, for instance, you have to own your stuff and you have to be free. Because then your voice won't always be captured, if I may put it that way. You know, number one, I'm a Pan-Africanist. That's why maybe I'm so passionate about sharing with my African people. Doesn't mean I'm racist. It just means my heart is in seeing Black people rise up and become better than what they are now. You know. But if I was captured by someone who pays me or someone who needs to give me money and someone I depend on, maybe they might say, "Witness, I don't like the things you share." And I've had people tell me, "I don't like the things you share on social media," but I don't care. They don't pay my. There's nothing that they can do to take away my voice. And for me, that's what success is: to have a voice.
That I think we share the same vision. To share, that's number one. And our only difference is that you prescribe to a certain race. I prescribe to anyone who's willing. And it does not mean that within our perspective there's one who's right and then there's the other one that's wrong. It's just what we stand for, and it's okay to stand for what you stand for. 100%. Witness, thank you very much for coming out. I really appreciate your time, man.